speaker. We're very fortunate tonight to have Rick Dalton, as I said, the Executive Vice President of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, as a stand-in for Sheriff Mack. He's certainly more than a stand-in, and I'm sure you'll be equally pleased at his message. He sent me his bio. He was born in Utah. He received a Bachelor of Arts in Statesmanship from George Wythe University. He's a graduate of the National Center for Constitutional Studies in Washington, D.C. Between 1978 and 1998, he was with the Mesa Police Department as a patrol officer, field training officer, crime scene officer, community relations specialist, school resource officer, police academy instructor, and firearms instructor. From 1998 to 2013, he was with the Heritage Academy in Mesa, and he was a history and economics professor, instructor, as well as the emergency response plan coordinator and the baseball coach. Quite a diverse gentleman. His professional memberships include, and you can see why I couldn't memorize this, President of the American Citizens and Lawmen's Association, President of the Arizona Crime Prevention Association, Legislative Chairman of the International Society of Crime Prevention Practitioners, Fraternal Order of Police, International Association of Law Enforcement, Firearms Instructors, and was the legislative liaison for the CSPOA. His community service awards include, I wish I had half this many to my background, Life Saving Award, Mesa Police Department, Arizona Safety Association's Howard Pyle Safety Award for the Outstanding Safety Practitioner in Arizona. For those of you who don't know, Howard Pyle is a former governor. Member of the City of Mesa Constitution Week Committee, Who's Who in the West, editor of Aid and Abet Police and Military Newsletter, field instructor for the National Center for Constitutional Studies, and his current position as Executive Vice President and Legislative Liaison for CSPOA. He is a widower with 4 children, 14 grandchildren, a proud father and grandfather as well, and his hobbies include performing music, songwriting, golf, and writing in general. I had not met him face-to-face until tonight, but I'm happy to say that in our discussions on the phone and the emails we exchanged, and his very gracious acceptance of the challenge to stand in for Sheriff Mack, we are indeed blessed and fortunate to have Richard Dalton. Richard. Yeah. Welcome, sir. Thank you, sir. Another custom of ours at Tea Party Scottsdale is that we do not interrupt our speaker with questions.
I'll be happy to stand for questions at the end, as many as you have.
And he's also agreed to stay after a little bit to get up close and personal, and I think he has some even more relative information about Sheriff Mack. So I know you didn't come to hear me. I will sit down and be quiet and leave the rest to Rick. Rick,
and I know you didn't come to hear me. Most of you that didn't hear the message, and I apologize. However, well, you're going to find out right away. Usually it's not till I get in a little bit that I'm kind of an emotional guy. But let me fill you in on Sheriff Mack's condition. Bill pretty much explained it. By the way, I've never had anybody read all that stuff in my bio before. I tell them to pick 2 or 3. It sounds like it's impossible. And I can't believe that. But anyway, I guess I'm just the kind of guy that tries to finds things he likes to do and then tries to do them. Thank you very much. Thank you. So anyway, it was the artery, and I can't print. It's the LAD, lateral ascending.
Left anterior descending.
Thank you very much. Left anterior descending artery. They call it the Widowmaker. They do. It was 100% blocked. I'll just tell you how close it was, and I know that the Lord intervened here. He was at the gym working out. He had felt great all day long. He bought a new pair of shoes to run. He works out regularly. And and he was at the gym working out, and he just barely started, he got there, and he got on the treadmill kind of low, slow, just to kind of warm up. Nothing hard, nothing heavy. And he started feeling this chest pain, and he thought, oh, it's indigestion maybe, and he did he coughed, and all of a sudden it felt pretty bad, so he went over and sat down a bit, and then came down his left arm. Now here's what he says, Rick, being a cop, and he was the sheriff for a long time. He also was a regular patrol officer with Provo, Utah PD before that. He says, you know what, when you call 911, how long it takes them to get there, right? Yeah. And it's usually 10 minutes most of the time. Then they got to talk to you and get you on the gurney and stabilize you and get the IV in and ask you about your insurance and everything else. He said, I felt like I should just go myself. He jumped in his truck and he drove himself. He did not call 911. He called his son on the way. Of course, he said if he felt even the slightest bit faint, he would have pulled right over. But he got there in 4 minutes from the gym to the hospital. He pulled right up in front, parked right where the ambulance does, got out, walked in. He said, I walked past that big long line in the emergency room. I walked right up to the front to the nurse, and I said, I'm having bad chest pains. I need help now. Wow. So she said, okay. Within 5 minutes, he was on a gurney. They had an EKG. And the doctor said, this is the real deal. Let's go. And so they got him right up. From the time that they said, this is the real deal, it was 35 minutes. Now, he doesn't remember exactly what was going on, except he was just trying to breathe and trying to relax. He said after about 35 minutes, then everybody kind of stopped their hustle and bustling up in the ER, up in the operating room. He said, well, I asked him, well, what are you going to do? And he says, we're done. The stent was already in. They didn't even put him out for that. So anyway, there you go. That's because they didn't think they had time to do all the other stuff. Thank God that he made it. The doctor told him if 5 minutes or more, maybe he probably wouldn't be here. So I thank God that he was there for Richie. I call him Richie. I got to try to say Sheriff Mack. But he thanks all of you. He sends his thanks for all of the expressions of love and concern and the prayers. My gosh, he didn't realize how famous is the word, but it's how dearly loved he has been. And he told me it's kind of overwhelming. He said, please give everybody my thanks. And he said, and people also asked, what can we do? What can we do? He said, please, here's what you can do. Thank you, but you don't need to send cards and letters and phone calls. He said, one thing you can do. Now, I'm going to tell you why he said this. Richard, he works for nothing. He doesn't get a salary. Neither do I. No one in the leadership of CSPOA gets a penny. We survive totally on donations. And Rich he has no other job. He has no paycheck. He has no retirement. He survives on book sales. That's how he feeds his family and pays his mortgage on his house. Right. So he said, please, if they want to help, please buy the books, join CSPOA, and help us to increase freedom in America. Absolutely. So that's his request to you. It's, here we are trying to sell books already, but that's how he lives, is by his books. And I'm telling you, if you haven't read any of his, you're in for a treat. If you have, the latest one's great. They're all tremendous. So, again, thank you from Sheriff Mack. I'm not on my iPad. I got to do this other thing. I can't just do the screen. Forget what I'm on today. All right, so let me just begin. Let me tell you how I met Richie, by the way. Years ago, about 1990, I was a Mesa police officer, just barely on, not barely, let's see. No, I'd been on about 12 years. And, and he got elected sheriff. And I was working and teaching for the National Center for Constitutional Studies. NCCS.net, if you don't know about it, it's a wonderful organization. He heard about me. I heard about him. Both of us being in law enforcement. He called me on the phone and he said, hey, will you come teach my deputies the Constitution? So he required every one of his deputies, the old salts and the new guys, all of them, to take a seminar on the Constitution. And he said, you know why you're doing this? He said, because you didn't learn it right in the police academy. Sadly enough, he was right. I took a course, 16 hours of a course called Constitutional Law in the police academy. We never once opened the Constitution. We discussed Supreme Court cases and that's it. Pretty sad. So it took somebody to wake me up, just like it took someone to wake him up, to realize that that oath that I had taken really meant something. Many law enforcement officers, when they take the oath, and they mean it, they're sincere, but it's the last time they ever talk about the Constitution or look at it in their whole career. Thank goodness that's changed for many, and we're trying to help it change for a lot more of those who we call peace officers. So that's how I met him, and we've been friends ever since. Proud to say he's never beat me at golf, but when I say I'm here to stand in for Richard Mack, you want to talk about the phrase "big shoes to fill"? Well, yeah, his shoes are about 4 sizes bigger than mine, but so is his stature, and so is his fire for freedom. The man is on fire for liberty, and it's an honor to stand here and to represent him and to fill in for him today. So let's talk about something general. What are the 3 great yearnings of mankind? Well, how about freedom, prosperity, and peace? We can all have different answers, but in general, isn't that what everybody wants? Now, those are general things. Freedom hopefully means the same thing to everybody, just being able to do whatever we want unless we're violating somebody else's rights. Prosperity, hey, we want to have things we have, and we want the right to property. There's another thing, life, liberty, and property. Those 3 great yearnings of mankind, whose primary responsibility is it to protect your rights? Mr. Corwin, good to see you, sir. I think that's you. Okay.
Tried to sneak in quietly.
Impossible.
Whose responsibility is it to protect your life, liberty, and property? It's yours. Yours is the primary responsibility. Law enforcement, we like to say, hey, we're the Capes Crusaders and all that stuff, and yeah, you in a heap of trouble, boy. That's right. Get on the ground. Yeah. Well, we like to feel like we are. We do help people and we do protect their rights. But when there's seconds to spare, the police are minutes away.
Yep.
On our best days. Yeah. So it's your responsibility. And hopefully more and more peace officers will get to know that. Well, our job's to help you. It's all based on your individual right to self-defense. A great author and a great economist, political economist, Frederick Bastiat, I hope the name's not unfamiliar to all of you. If you haven't read his book, The Law, a small little book, and I told my students, I'm retired, it's the biggest little book you'll ever read. It's about 67 pages, a little small thing. And he says, what is law? What is government? He said it's the collective organization of the individual right to lawful defense. That's exactly what it is. Every power that the government has, and let's just relate it to peace officers. The term law enforcement is used a lot, but I like to call myself a peace officer. Right. In fact, in Arizona, that is what police officers are called. Peace officers. And I lost my train of thought right there. The individual right. And so you have a right to delegate some of your rights. You have the authority or the right to delegate some of your rights to the government, to law enforcement. But you don't give them all away. And what you delegate is only partial. It's only on your behalf. It's not replacing your rights, but it's delegation. And you can only delegate a right that you actually have. I mean, you know this. I hope everybody knows that. And so that's the idea. And so if everyone has an individual right to use force to protect themselves, then they have a right to hire a group of people to protect your rights collectively. You could stand on your front porch with an AR-15 or an AK or your favorite alphabet, MP5 or PhD, see that one in there, and protect your property, but how much work would you get done? You have a right to stand on your roof with a garden hose in case it catches on fire, but you'd be stuck there 24/7. That is why what some people, and sadly enough, some people who call themselves, I don't want to use labels, but anyway, they say they're libertarians, different shades, but they think no government is best. I don't know. I'd be stuck in my house 24/7 if I had to do all of it myself.
Yeah.
So thank goodness if you delegate it, thank goodness it is to people who you trust, who you limit their power, and you watch them very closely and jealously what they do with your power. So that's true. Today we're losing that freedom, and you all know that. That's something you already know. So we must get it back. We must increase liberty. We must start where we are. You and I must educate ourselves. It is your responsibility. It is, of course, your responsibility to protect yourself. And remember the word force, to use force to protect yourself. That involves some items that can make you equal to a burglar, can make a woman who, a great equalizer to a petite lady, make her equal to a 6'4", 280-pound attacker. The great equalizer. What is it? Dare I say that icky word? It's a gun.
Yep.
And folks, it's more than a right to have a weapon, whatever weapon, to defend yourself. It is a duty. I thank God that on a summer night at 03:31 hours in 1993, I had one. Gang members broke into my home in Mesa. Myself, my wife, and my 4 kids were asleep. Well, I thought we were all asleep, but my wife wasn't. She had trouble sleeping. She got up to get a drink of water, and she went in the other end of the house watching TV. When the next thing I remembered, she was at my bedside grabbing my arm. Rick, wake up, wake up. You know, I'm sleeping, I'm tired. She's grabbing me right here. And wake up, somebody's trying to get in the house. I said, what? You know how they did, I'm groggy. And no, it's a cat probably. Come on, come to bed. And then, now I felt her nails digging into my bicep. I think I was awake then. She said, get up and get your gun.
Amen.
So, okay, now I was a cop at this time. Thank goodness. I got up, I reached in the nightstand, took out the Glock, Model 23, tritium night sights. And, I'm walking, I apologize, don't try to get a mental picture, but I'm in my underwear. I'm walking down, walking the gun down here. Okay, honey, I'm sure it's okay. So I walked around, looked out the front yard, didn't see anything, looked out the backyard. Long story short, I didn't see anything. I was about ready to go back to bed when I heard this huge crash. It was the door out to the backyard from the kitchen and dining room area. And I knew that was not a cat. I said, honey, go call 911. She ran down to the other end of the house, the bedroom, to call 911. I took up a position, it's a long story, but I was able to see all 3 doors to our house, or be right there to see if anyone came in any of the 3 doors. The front door, the carport door, and the back door, in a door, it was actually a doorway. Then, bam, I heard it again. This time, the window broke. Now, I had plexiglass in all of those doors because my kids had broken them so many times. That's why they didn't break the first time. But they picked up a croquet mallet, and this time they broke it, and a chunk of plexiglass flew in, the curtain flew up. I knew there was something going on here. So I remember taking up a position, just training, modified Weaver stance, the doors here. All the person could see would have been about half of my face, and maybe the barrel of my gun. And I waited. I watched as a hand came in, moved the curtain aside, reached in and unlocked my door from the outside, pushed the door open, at that time, I've got the bead right there, right in the center of the doorway, and I've got pressure on the trigger. The intruder stepped inside. I started, now, by the way, I had already said in my mind to the Lord, please, God, make sure this is somebody who deserves to die. Because I had decided I wasn't going to warn them, because I want to know who it is. I'm not going to threaten them or scare them, or, hey, I got a gun. I wanted to see who it was. So I started pulling. The intruder stepped in, took the first step inside. Their head was down. I had the trigger coming back. About halfway back, then she lifted up her head. It was a 16-year-old girl, 8 months pregnant. I didn't notice that yet at the time. The guys, the gang member guys outside, 5 of them sent her in first. You know how close I came? When I saw her face, the threat in my mind disappeared. I released the trigger. So I took her in, grabbed her and put her on the ground, sat on top of her, put my gun in her neck. I still didn't realize she was pregnant. I wish I would have. I wouldn't have been quite so. I didn't throw her down or anything. But when I said stop or I'll shoot, she kept walking right from the back door to the carport door. She just kept on walking. I said stop or I'll shoot. She told me, oh, I got to open the door. She was so high on drugs. 8 months pregnant. So once I got her in custody, I yelled as loud as I could. The next person in here dies because I've got a gun and I know how to use it. I heard the pitter-patter of little feet going the other way. Thank goodness I had a gun and I knew how to use it. They caught 1 of the 5 on somebody's roof, 4 houses down, hiding. The troops got there within 3 minutes of my call. When they got there, it was over at my house. It was all over. All over but the laughing. So when they came in and saw me sitting on top of this girl in my underwear with a gun, yeah. But, folks, it's more than a right. It's more than a right. It's a duty. We have become a nation of cowards. Sir.
Did you have every right to shoot her?
Of course I did. Yeah, if we can save the questions to last, but yes, I did. I would have been legally justified. Here's why. They knew that we were home. Okay, it wasn't a matter of just a burglary to steal. They were stealing my toaster and my microwave. They knew we were home. The cars were in the driveway. They knew we were home. I was justified in fearing for the safety. They used violence and force to break in. A home invasion, it happens all the time. I would have been justified.
How did they know you were home?
But their cars, they could have peeked through the curtains and seen my wife there watching television. There was a little, there was space. The light was on in the kitchen, and all the cars were in the driveway. So, by the way, it was random. They were gang members, but we determined it wasn't because I was a cop. So the point is, I used what I had, and I didn't have to kill anybody. In the vast majority of incidents where a citizen uses a firearm to defend themselves, they never have to fire it. Why? Well, if you're a bad guy looking down the barrel of a gun, most they're like cockroaches. When the lights go on, they flee. They flee. And the sound of a Remington 870 racking around, that's psychological deterrent, folks. Mm-hmm. Yes. So anyway, that's the idea. We have the right and the duty. So then after Sheriff Mack hired me to teach this deputies, then came the Brady Bill, 1993, 4, 5, when was that? 3, I think. The Brady Bill, 1994, thank you, sir, 94. The Brady Bill amended the Omnibus Gun Control Act of 1968. And by the way, that bill actually contained verbatim words lifted from the 1938 gun control laws of Adolf Hitler. I've got the expert here. I'm hoping I'll get corrected if I'm wrong. But I've seen the letter of translation from the Library of Congress to Senator Dodd, I believe. Anyway, yeah. So they amended it, and it says, hey, we're going to make a background check. We're going to protect people by taking away their guns, or by making it harder for them to get protection. That isn't what they intended, but that was the thing. And Sheriff Mack was required, like all others.
It's right there.
Oh, there's a whole book. Are we selling it?
I can make arrangements.
Gun control, gateway to tyranny. Well, yes, we know that. Every place, anywhere, tyrannical people that wanted to take over, they try to disarm them first.
That's right.
Absolutely. Anyway, so let's go on. It said that CLEOs, C-L-E-O, that's Chief Law Enforcement Officers, have to do the background checks and all that within 5 days to make sure that a person, after they get the forms from the federal firearms dealer, the application, the law enforcement officers, and they use the term CLEO, Chief Law Enforcement Officer. So in the county, that's the sheriff, had to do it. Had to spend the money, hire the people, take the time and do it. Well, Sheriff Mack thought, wait a minute, who's going to pay for this? And then he thought, wait a minute, I don't work for those guys anyway. He knew the Constitution. He knew about a little thing called federalism. By the way, I left my phone at home, so I'm unable to keep track of time. What time is it, and how much time do I have left, Bill?
Rick, you take as much time as you like at 7:15.
Okay, if I'm done by 7:30, 7:35, are you okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. So at 7:30, Chris, if you wouldn't mind, at 7:30, throw something at me. I could donate. Real cops don't eat donuts.
Yes, they do.
No, cheese Danish. So Richie actually said, no, I'm not going to do it. He was at a conference when some of the feds were down there telling all the agencies they had to do it. He says, no, I don't think so. They said, oh yeah, we do think so. So he filed a lawsuit. He said, I work for the people that elected me, and it's going to take more taxpayer dollars to do it, and I'm not going to do it. So there were several. He thought it was unconstitutional to begin with, but just the idea of the law itself requiring you to jump through hoops to be able to protect yourself. And then second, of course, he knew the thing called federalism, the separation of the powers vertically as well as horizontally. And he said, I'm not going to do it. Well, so another sheriff, Sheriff Jay Prince of Ravalli County, Montana, also filed a separate suit. When they heard about each other, they joined. And I think there were 3 or 4 other sheriffs, a total of 6, if I'm not, something like that joined out of 3,200 sheriffs in the United States. They had the guts to stand up and say no. So it went to federal court. The first federal district court, it was in Tucson. And the judge, let me grab this. This little thing right here, this cost $400,000. This is a synopsis of the case. You can have it for $1.
Yep.
Right over there. But the judge said, oh goodness, wait, I've got one. Oh, you put, I brought my own that I wrote in, that I hadn't. Oh well. Anyway, Judge John Roll, Federal District Court in Tucson, Southern District of Arizona, said the federal government cannot conscript state or local officials to perform or to assist in or to enforce a federal regulatory scheme or plan.
Right.
Interesting. Well, the feds appealed it, of course, and it ended up going to the Supreme Court. But I might mention to you, the first one, the Judge John Roll, if you don't know, you all remember the Tucson shooting where the guy shot a bunch of people in the parking lot of a Safeway or something?
Yeah.
Judge John Roll was one of those who was killed
He was the one.
in that parking lot. Now, you know, we're all conspiracy nuts or we wouldn't be here, right? So there's some food for thought there for you if you want to say something like that. But whether or not, it's an interesting fact. So they finally went to the Supreme Court, and the court, I can read from this one to begin with. Thank goodness the decision, oh there's my other one maybe. The decision was issued by Justice Antonin Scalia, a real constitutional judge, as far as I've been able to determine. And so let's just real quick, how many have not heard the story of this case? Oh, Very few of you have. Let me just, it'll be brief. The petitioners, and that's Mack and Prince, object to being pressed into federal, this is the actual decision, this is the introduction to explain what it is. Being pressed into federal service and contend that congressional action compelling state officers to execute federal laws is unconstitutional. Amen. Not only do the enactments of the early Congresses, as far as we are aware, contain no evidence of an assumption that the federal government may command the state's executive power in the absence of a particularized constitutional authorization. In other words, without an amendment.
Right.
Let's see, do they contain some indication of precisely, and they do contain some indication of precisely the opposite assumption. So, there's no justification, no understanding, no expectation of the federal government. The whole reason they wrote the Constitution is to put it in a cage. The chains of the Constitution. It also contained a provision of arrest and fine for anyone who fails to comply with the law. So Richard Mack was actually subject to being arrested. He had to get a court order ordering the federal government not to arrest him during the case, its adjudication. So here's some of the findings. Residual state sovereignty was implicit, of course, in the Constitution's conferral upon Congress of not all governmental powers, but only discrete, enumerated ones. This is Constitution 101, folks. This is plain and simple. Limited government, enumerated powers. James Madison, as you know, said the powers given to the federal government will be few and defined.
Yep.
That's his words. Those of the states will be innumerable and, I can't remember the other words, but anyway, basically the federal government is a security guard, or an umbrella, if you wish, to protect against outside problems, basically. So
why didn't it work?
you know, I'm on some online discussion forums. There are people, oh my goodness, they say the Constitution failed.
No.
The Constitution didn't fail, nor did its provisions or its principles. We failed. And Madison said that too. This Constitution is made for a moral and religious people, and it's inadequate for the government of any other. Elsewhere he said, our Constitution is nothing if it's up against unbridled passions of men.
Good answer.
The states are not puppets. Preservation of states as independent and autonomous political entities is arguably less undermined by requiring them to make policy in certain fields. They remain today independent and autonomous within their proper sphere of authority. It's separation of powers and federalism, the two terms. So thank goodness Sheriff Mack had the guts to do it. It was difficult, very difficult. It cost $400,000. He didn't have that kind of money. Thank goodness others with an interest in freedom and liberty did and were able to help. And the decision came down, and let's give you the very end here. The basic Constitution protects us from our own best interests. I'm sure those that wrote it that were interested in eliminating or preventing violence. I think so. That along with the other parts of more power and control and free donuts and whatever else. The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the states' officers or those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. It matters not whether policy making is involved, and no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. Some of those decisions say you got to, the interest of the government and the benefits, and you got to weigh that balance. bovine
Yep.
excrement. It matters not. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with our constitutional system of dual sovereignty.
Yep.
Amen. Pass the ammunition.
Yes.
So that's the court. Thank goodness, and that thing didn't get hardly any major media attention. It's a real landmark case. It's being revived and used today now in many fronts. My goodness, it's amazing. It's unbelievable. Okay, let me just share with you some of our educational materials, and then I've got another little brief thing to say, and we'll be done, folks. What we want you to do, I'll just tell you right now, here's what we are asking you to do. Educate yourself, if you haven't. And if you think you're totally educated, I don't think you are. No. I don't know you, but I know I'm not, and I've spent the last 35 years teaching the Constitution. There's things I learn all the time. And because of my age, there's things I learn that I forget, and I have to relearn. Okay? You got to learn how to shoot. You got to practice. You got to practice. That's not exactly like riding a bike. But anyway, so this is available for $2. This for $1. Am I right, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, $1. Forget. He knows the prices. And it's amazing. It's a really good summary, easy to understand and organized of the case. If you want to get the whole case and look at it, you can do that. It's online. Richard's first book. I think it was his first one.
Yes.
Thank you. From My Cold Dead Fingers. By the way, Chris is a life member of CSPLA.
Right.
He runs around and does all this stuff for nothing.
Yeah.
He's crazy too. Thank you, Chris.
Works every day.
From My Cold Dead Fingers. An excellent book. Why America Needs Guns. Well, how could a cop talk like that? That's crazy. The picture is his wife Dawn's hand on the gun.
Repeat this. That book was written before his case.
Yes.
Magic was written after
The
his
Magic
case.
of Gun Control, yeah.
And then I'll let you tell about the new one.
All right, so the next one is The Magic of Gun Control. It's like, if it really was that good, the laws would take care of all the violence there is.
Right.
For heaven's sakes, who are we kidding? It's excellent. It gives you an idea of what's been tried and how it's happened. You know the facts, such as when they began to authorize concealed carry permits. By the way, this is your concealed carry permit, the Second Amendment. But when they began to do it around the nation, crime dropped dramatically.
Yep.
My goodness, yeah. Now, some of you folks are old enough to remember the Clairol commercials on television. This cute girl is walking down the street and her hair is bouncy and shiny, and doesn't she? Only her hairdresser knows for sure. You remember that?
Yeah.
Now a guy's standing in an alley watching a nurse getting out of the hospital going home at 3 o'clock in the morning. Does she or doesn't she? Only her gunsmith knows for sure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway. The Proper Role of Law Enforcement. An excellent book to talk about what the authority of law enforcement is and what it isn't. $5. Oh, he's giving me the prices. $15 each on these. And now let's get to these two. The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. You know, this really is the situation. Sheriff Mack basically says we're going to take back America, county by county, state by state. Let's see here. If I can get this one up. It's excellent. What happened? I don't know. Okay. And this, the newest book, Are You a David? By the way, these two for $20. $15, $8 by itself. Didn't you say 5?
No.
That was
the
the-
role of law enforcement is 5.
Oh, that was this one, okay.
Correct.
But 20 for the two. This book is amazing. David and Goliath, we know the story. David and Goliath. He came with a sling and a stone. Goliath's the big, well, we could call him a federal SWAT team commander. I guess we could. Probably part of the SWAT team for the agriculture department. They have one, you know. Yeah, yeah.
30,
Ridiculous.
the DVD.
I have it. It's right here. I'm getting to it.
Not going fast
Okay.
enough.
So anyway, but you know what else David had besides his sling and his rock?
Courage.
He had faith, and he said, I come to you in the name of the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
You and the Lord, or me and the Lord, are always a majority.
Yep.
And we need people willing to stand up in the face of Goliath. This book is amazing. It has a lot of stories about those things, real life stories. I'm going to tell you about some. On the cover, that's not Richard Mack, by the way. I'm trying to stay in where the video is. I apologize, sir. I'm making his life heck. But you got it. Come on, you got a plaque, so be happy.
We have 1 minute, but I'm gonna guess they're gonna take some more for you.
Okay, all right. One more. I got 1 more minute. I'm just about done. Anyway, this sheriff on the cover is Sheriff Pam Elliott from Texas. I forget the county. There's so many of them. She's awesome. Just look at her. She don't mess around. She's not as tall. I think she's about my height, not even that tall. But let me tell you, you see her in that uniform, that cowboy hat on, that stainless Colt 1911, cocked and locked on the side. Wait, is that a Colt? Yeah, it is a Colt, 1911. You bet, she's ready. And she doesn't mess around. And all of her force and her power is geared to one thing, protecting the citizens who elected her. We have sheriffs all over the country that are standing in the gap. They're interpositioning themselves. James Madison said, we need to have those that will interposition to stop the excesses of the federal government. And she's one that's doing it. This book has great, great stories, and it asks if you are. We want you to please help by purchasing these things. You can be a member. It's $35 a year to join. And we don't just only want your money. Here's what we want you to do as members. We want you to contact all of your local officials. In addition to law enforcement officers, peace officers, we have members that are county commissioners, city council members, school board members. What else is there? Elected officials, local and state, and county, that have taken the same oath and that are going to stand up. Now, we have issued a resolution to the federal government, and by the way, we're not just an organization that's against the federal government. We are not. We have members that are part of the federal government. But we are against governmental overreach, whether it be the school board, the city council, or the federal Department of Redundancy Department. Yeah, or the BLM, or the IRS. Let me tell you a quick IRS story that's interesting in just a second. We issued a resolution. You can go to our website, cspway.org/resolution, and read it. It says basically, we determine, furthermore, we maintain that no agency established by the Congress can develop its own policies or regulations. This was written at our meeting in Las Vegas in January of last year, and it was written with a cadre of attorneys right there with us. They made no agency can develop their own policies or regulations which supersede the Bill of Rights or the Constitution, nor does the executive branch have the power to make law, overturn law, or set aside law. The following abuses will not be allowed or tolerated. Number 1, registration of personal firearms under any circumstances.
Right.
Number 2, confiscation of firearms without probable cause, due process, and constitutionally compliant warrants issued by a local or state jurisdiction. No federal.
Right.
3, audits or searches of a citizen's personal affairs or finances without probable cause, due process, and constitutionally compliant warrants. It's the same phrase. So there are 8 more. statements where that there's the line, we're not letting you do it. And all over the country, people are going to their county sheriffs, and they are finding refuge and relief from, now, the entire federal government's not bad and wrong. Every person in every agency is not bad or wrong. Don't believe it is. However, you know them by their fruits. Sheriff Brad Rogers in Indiana. There was an Amish farmer in Indiana, and what do? They farm and they have milk. The Amish farmer, at the request of his neighbors, because he had more than he could consume, was selling raw milk to them. He didn't have a business. He wasn't advertising. He wasn't out selling it on the streets, but it was his friends and neighbors. And the FDA, I think it was the FDA or was Department of Agriculture, one of the two.
I think it was agriculture.
Agriculture showed up and they want to inspect, and you know how that goes. I'm here to inspect. Well, he said, well, is there a complaint? Did somebody get sick from my milk? No. Do you have a warrant? No. Well, this is my badge. It says inspector right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. We inspect. He said, no complaints. Nobody got sick. No search warrant. See you later. I got work to do. He came back a couple more times. The farmer went to the county sheriff, Brad Rogers. By the way, this farmer didn't even vote for him. Amish don't vote.
That's right.
Okay?
Yeah.
But he knew the sheriff took an oath. He explained what's going on, and the sheriff went out to the farm to, they said you have to be inspected, you got to pasteurize your milk and, pass the health department, blah, blah, blah. He went out to the farm, the sheriff did, and looked it over, and there was nothing that looked bad or wrong, and looked, it was pristine and very clean to his, what he looked like. And so he calls the Department of Agriculture. He says, hey, you guys went out to this farm, and there's no complaints, there's no search warrant, there's no laws have been violated. Well, yeah, that's true, but hey, he's selling milk and somebody could get hurt. And the sheriff says, let me just tell you, that's his private property. He has told me he doesn't want you to come back anymore, and my job is to protect his rights. And just like if a burglar came out on his property, I'd arrest him for criminal trespassing or burglary. If you send your agents back on that property again without a lawfully, constitutionally compliant search warrant, I will arrest you. I will not send a deputy out there to arrest you for criminal trespassing. I will personally come myself and arrest you for trespassing. And he says, if you do have a warrant, then I'm telling you now, you bring it to me first. I'll check it out. If it's valid, I'll go with you to serve the warrant so that nothing bad happens. So the farmer doesn't slip by mistake and hurt himself. He hasn't heard from him in a year and a half. The farmer has not heard from the federal government in a year and a half. Ladies and gentlemen, it works. We, so far, and we're saying this, we have a 100% success rate whenever our people have interceded and interposed on behalf of citizens. Sheriff London, I think Scott London, Eddy County, New Mexico. This is the last one, I promise. Eddy County, New Mexico. The IRS, 2 federal marshals and an IRS agent showed up at this guy's house while he was at work and changed the locks on his doors. He owed money to the IRS. They had actually obtained a court order to seize his property for back taxes. He got there, his house was already locked up, he couldn't get in it, and he had 2 rental properties they were about to do too. So he called the sheriff, Scott London, Eddy County, New Mexico. Sheriff London showed up out there and said, well, what's going on? He listened to the whole side, both sides of the story, and the citizen said, yeah, but I have filed an appeal against this judgment. I have a right to file an appeal. It's been timely filed. He showed it to him with the stamp from the court on it. And it's been timely filed. And the U.S. Marshal says, yeah, but I got orders to do this. And he looks at the sheriff and says, I've got orders to arrest anybody who tries to interfere. Well, the sheriff said, okay. He pulled out his copy of the Constitution, which he had in his hand. And he looks in the 5th Amendment and the 14th Amendment, it talks about due process. He says due process has not been completed for this American citizen under the Constitution, and you can't do it. You don't really want to break the law, do you? And by the way, you're not taking me to jail. It may be the other way around. but you're not taking me to jail. Interesting. They backed up and they left. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the front lines. We need citizens who will stand up and not cave in if you think your rights have been violated. Make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's. But we're there for you. If it happens, you become a victim of federal overreach, what kind of sheriff do you want? What kind of police chief do you want in your jurisdiction? I urge you to get a hold of them. Let them know you support them in what they do. These very same guys that will do what those federal marshals did, they'll step in front of a bullet for you the very next minute.
Yep.
Okay? Don't hate, educate those that are entrusted with the enforcement of the laws and the keeping of the peace and the protection of rights, because they're not all bad. So we invite you to join us. We've got applications over there. If you join, we're going to be contacting you and asking you to do specific things. We're going to ask you, what do you know about your county sheriff? Is he good or bad? By the way, Sheriff Joel's already on board with us. He needs to be a little more fully on board. But I'm telling you, he's a good man. He's on the back cover of the book, The County Sheriff. So I thank you so much. Please,
Show him the wallet.
oh yeah, yes. If you want to be a life member, we have an actual badge for you. CSPOA badge, a badge wallet, and that's a legitimate, really quality badge.
I don't
So-
know the exact figure on that, but it's 300 to 400, 2 to
I'm not
400?
sure. Go online and you can find out. This is a video available at $20.
Yes.
$20. This is available. $30. This is 5 DVDs. It's a video of our St. Louis convention. Many of these sheriffs I just told you about were there talking about their stories. It's amazing. Finally, this. More powerful than any invading army is an idea whose time has come. Freedom is that idea. God bless you and God bless America.
Answer questions.
Oh yes.
Rick's agreed to answer questions. If you want to ask a question, please identify, raise your hand, I'll call on you. State your name as a courtesy to Mr. Dalton so he knows who he is addressing, and form a succinct question. We don't need a minute and a half question for a 10-second answer, please. So first question. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Peter Steinmetz, and I'd like to ask
I
a
know who
question.
you are.
Okay. I'd like to know an answer about the TSA and the idea of not being searched illegally and sheriffs supporting this. I'd like to know, can I call Sheriff Joe Arpaio the next time I go down to the airport and ask him to tell the TSA to knock it off and search me?
I don't think that'll work.
No?
Okay, I don't think he'll do it. That's an incident we're working on. That's a situation that we're working on. We know it's difficult. But let me tell you this. Deputy Sheriff Stan Lenick, L-E-N-I-C, Buffalo, New York Airport. I don't know if it's Buffalo County. I can't remember. There are people handing out flyers saying they're violating your rights when they search you. They were not getting in anybody's way. It was a public place. It wasn't inside the secure area. And they were just handing things out. The airport administrator called the police. You know the story? Sheriff
The same
Lenick,
thing happened to me down here.
Deputy Sheriff Lenick came and listened to the airport administrator. This is a federal guy. Listened to these people. He had, by the way, he observed what they were doing before he even went up there, just so he could really see. They weren't breaking any laws or any rules. It was a public place. People coming and going. Anyway, the sheriff listened to both sides. The administrator said, we want them to leave. And this is a deputy sheriff now. He says, well, no, they're not breaking any laws. There's no, everybody else can stand around here. Two people could be talking. Well, handing out a flyer is the same as communicating. It's talking. It's free speech. And the guy says, well, I want to know who you guys are. Give me your names. The sheriff said, no, I'm sorry, you can't demand that. If they want to give them to you, fine. So the administrator says to the sheriff, deputy sheriff, you get the info. He said, no, I can't even ask them. I got no authority to ask them. They're not breaking any laws. They don't have to. So long story short, finally, he told the guy, just go on over there or go back to your office or something, because I'm not going to arrest him and I'm not going to make him leave. Well, he was our deputy of the year. At this you'll see him get his award in the video in St. Louis was that 13 or 14?
13.
That was in 13. Okay, he was our deputy sheriff of the year. All right, another question. We're working on that, by the way.
Good. Well, the same thing happened to me actually just on the 22nd at Sky Harbor. We went down to protest the TSA.
Well, if that's what you were doing, then
No, and the police backed us up on that.
oh, good.
Yeah.
But that was Phoenix PD, though.
Yeah, Phoenix.
Because at the airport. Well, good.
The administrator did the same thing. They called, and they had all sorts of people there and everything,
Okay.
trying to tell us you can't do this and so on. The police came and they said, look, if they're not standing in anybody's way,
That's great.
this is
Folks,
First Amendment.
make a phone call. Make a phone call to Phoenix PD and thank them for what they did. I mean, you got, we scream at them when they do something we don't like.
They did do the right thing.
Okay, yes. Anyone else, other questions?
Another question for Mr. Dalton.
Sir?
Mark.
Just so you know, we joined 2 years ago, my wife.
CSPOA?
Yes.
Oh, you bet.
2 years ago. And last month, I signed up for Lifetime, and Kim's gonna sign up for Lifetime tonight.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And it's a great program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Next question.
So if you do get arrested, you get called at home.
No other questions?
Anybody else?
Oh, right here.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll add it on to that, because we're members. I'm Francine of the Tea Party, Grassroots Tea Party, Glendale.
Glendale.
Yeah, Glendale, yeah. But we're CSPO members, we did, a year or two ago. But there's also a thing you can do, a monthly, you can get on, because I'm on that, a monthly deal where you can donate and have a monthly and have it taken out of your checking or
Yeah,
credit card
yeah.
every month,
Just-
which
just
is
like-
really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cool project.
Supposed to make it
It's a big
easy.
deal.
Yeah. Don't even know where the money's being taken.
Right.
Kind of like the IRS.
How does the
No,
sheriff-
not like the
no,
IRS.
how does the sheriff get involved in with all this garbage that's going on now with the racial thing, the cops getting killed and all this.
Okay, we hold,
and everything?
let me just, first of all, let me give you, you can go, we have a channel on YouTube that has a lot of this stuff. CSPOA DOT.org. CSPOA.org, only spell out the word dot, no spaces. A whole YouTube channel. Sheriff Richard Clark, who was our deputy, our sheriff of the year, last year, talks about this a lot. He's been on the Kelly File. He's been on lots of national news media. He is one hell of an American, I'll tell you that. He's amazing. Anyway, you can check out what he says about it, because, I mean, obviously, we all know what the deal is. It's not a matter of race. And most of the people at the Ferguson, for example, most of the people there were, I shouldn't say most, enough of the people were from out of town with pre-printed signs ready to go. And we're talking about the Communist Party USA. We're talking about several of the socialist unions in America. SEIU for one. Their little logos are on the signs they were handing out there.
Oh my God.
Holding up. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Dalton?
One last one. Over the last 2 or 3 years, it seems like I keep coming across pictures like in Seattle where it says DHS police, or I go to gun shows and I get separate eyewitnesses about armored vehicles being delivered that are DHS, either in Phoenix, or news reports out of Las Vegas, local reporters saying that they found an abandoned car dealership outside of Vegas loaded to the gills with new armored vehicles, looking like DHS is preparing to be a federal police. In fact, it even says DHS police on some of their Tahoes in Seattle. That how do you, as a sheriff, stand up against an armed to the gills federal DHS ready to roll over you during martial law?
Well, when your last 3 words, during martial law, that's a whole different story. That's war. That's period. That's the only, if it gets that far, then it's gonna be a shooting war. And you gotta take a side. Let's hope it never gets there, but it is true, they are expanding, claiming jurisdiction. They're searching vehicles at airports, they're searching vehicles in the parking lots where people park before they go to the airport, off airport property. They're doing all kinds of things. Leave a little note in the car. your vehicle has been searched by da-da-da-da-da for security purposes to keep you safe. Yeah,
If you want a real adventure, watch the Super Bowl and what happens in your state,
yeah,
possibly in your county.
yeah.
Here in Arizona, when the Super Bowl rolls through, watch. You'll see it.
But the number one thing is when you hear about something like this, check it out if it's true. When you see it, don't just sit there and be mad and yell at the TV. Get out there and talk to somebody. Make something happen. Speak to who's in charge.
Yeah, Mark Singer. We were with Sheriff Mack up in the Bundy Ranch in Nevada last April. And exactly the question you asked is what happened. The way we stopped them is we went up there, 90% of the people had their weapons in their vehicles, 10% had rifles on their back, and there was no situation like they made it look like the news media. We were up there, Sheriff Mack was up there. The way we shut it down, the biggest way is we had the cooperation, first of all, the assistant sheriff up there who helped make things happen. But the big thing was there was innocent civilians there that were protesting, and they knew that Bunker Hill was in 1775. Bunkerville would have been in 2014 if they shot at us. So we went up there, we shut it down. The BLM showed what they were. There was 200 vehicles there from the BLM. We counted, we filmed them.
State troopers also.
And basically it was the sheriff, assistant sheriff. What was his name? Was it Brad?
Tom's,
Yeah.
Tom somebody, I can remember last time.
Tom, I'll get it, but he was the chief deputy sheriff.
And he shut it down because they asked him, what?
You know, it's a whole long story. I hate to interrupt you, but you guys, you need to invite, if you have an Ammon Bundy, I've been speaking with Ammon Bundy around the various tea parties. He himself will tell you the story. You'll be absolutely blown away. God was there,
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
and so was courage.
Yeah.
Let's cut off the Q&A. I think we've handled it. Rick will be with us a little later. We have one other piece of business to do. Sonny, for joining us here.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
As a sign of our appreciation for your wonderful address to us tonight, Tea Party Scottsdale is proud to present this certificate of appreciation to Rick Dalton, CSPOA Executive Vice President, on the occasion of his address to our January general meeting, awarded this date, 15th of January 2015. Signed by yours truly
Thank you very
and
much.
authorized by the Secretary of State. Tea Party